Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home. I'm Tangcay from Variety. The SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 relief fund to support SAG-AFTRA artists with basic needs like rent, food, and healthcare costs during this global pandemic and industry shutdown. Donations are 100% tax deductible and directly support performers in dire need. Information on how you can support this effort can be found in the description of this video. And without further ado, let me introduce Laurence Fishburne. Hi,
Hello.
Laurence. How are you doing?
I'm well, Jess. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Stephan.
I'm here. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And Jasmine CEPHASJONES. How are you, Jasmine?
I'm good, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm great. I almost called you Jazz just because, you know, Jazz and Jasmine.
That's my nickname, so.
Love it. Congratulations on the show, Free RAYSHAWN, and the success of it with the Emmy nominations. Let's start with what drew you to the project. Laurence, do you want to go?
Sure. I was really intrigued by the idea of Quibi, this idea of quick bites and things that would be delivered on the phone between 8 and 10 minutes long. But more importantly, I was really moved by the story of Free RAYSHAWN. It's a story that I've told before in different ways. This one feels of the moment that we happen to be in here in this country and even around the world. So I was just very excited for those reasons to be working with Stephan, also who had already been attached, and also to be working with Antoine Fuqua and Cephas.
Yeah. And, you know, talk about the timeliness, because when that show came, you know, when that show was released and everything that was going on in the world, you know, especially in America, there couldn't have been a much timelier moment for it.
No.
And there's a sequence that actually has Stephan's character on video phone and.
Well, right. I mean, the whole media, the whole social media element of the story and the way in which RAYSHAWN brings a group of people together, brings the community, makes them aware of what's happening to him is, you know, a mirror of what has happened, particularly with Mr. Floyd's death.
Yeah.
Tragic as that was. So again, as I say, you know, the story really resonates with the moment that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And that's why it's an important story.
Yeah. Stephan, talk about how you got attached to the project and what drew you to playing RAYSHAWN.
Yeah, I just sat down with Antoine Fuqua just for lunch one day. And we got to talking about a whole bunch of things, but then he brought up this thing, Free RAYSHAWN, that he was so excited about. And he had told me that it was essentially a modern day take on Dog Day Afternoon, you know, centered around a young Black, war veteran. And, you know, my first initial reaction was like, you know, Dog Day Afternoon, what? You know, I love that film. You know, and you know, sort of hearing the story about this man who had barricaded himself inside of his house with his wife and his 5-year-old son, you know, essentially trying to negotiate his release from his apartment with the police department. And to me, it just felt like a ride. It felt like a ride of a film. You know, contained spaces are something that I love. I think that it's a unique challenge for an actor. And you know, obviously when I found out that Laurence was going to come on board and Jasmine was going to come on board, it made it all the more exciting. It felt like something that was, again, you know, one of those edge of your seat rather type of films. But something, you know, to Laurence's point, that just felt timely and relevant and poignant. The social media aspect just you know, it put a nice bow on it. You know, just to be able to see, you know, social media is this whole other character now in these stories. You know, you get to see people's opinions, you get to see the support of RAYSHAWN, but also people who believe that, he should be locked up with the rest of them. So to me, it just felt important. It felt real. And it felt like we had the opportunity to do something special.
Yeah. And what about you, Jasmine? How did you get involved with the series?
I got the offer about a week before I had to fly down to New Orleans. So I really started like getting involved like deeply, I think, from our first read through. And I mean, when I first got the project, I said yes to it immediately because of the story, because of, we've been talking about this subject in our music for years. We've been talking about this subject in TV and in film. I think what's different, what made this story different was the social media aspect, which we are now seeing that's included more and more in these TV and films, because what we see when we open up Twitter, or what we're afraid to see when we open up Twitter. So it's, social media has really become a big part of our lives. And that's what makes this story a little different from, what we've always been talking about. Everybody that was involved in the project, that was a complete yes for me. And I was excited to work with. And as soon as I got down there, we all kind of started working together, and it became a really safe and open space to be creative and to perform. And it was really, 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 really awesome to work together and try to, give this story justice and find the truth and the reality in an also action film, series.
Yeah. You talk about the table read. I mean, did any of you have a say in crafting your characters? Like, talk about the process of how you actually wanted to approach your characters.
Well, I know for me, right after the table read, me and Stephan and Fuqua and Cephas, we all went into a room and actually kind of explored how to make Stephan's character and I stronger. She wasn't, at the first read through, she wasn't written so heavily, actually, and she wasn't present in a lot of the scenes. And we kind of refocused on that because she also shared this experience as well. And so we talked about a lot. We talked about kind of the high stakes and like the action of it all, but we also talked about the quiet moments and what they would talk about when when they get those quiet moments. So she really kind of, my character, I know specifically, grew drastically, I think, out of that first read through, which was really, really interesting and exciting for me, for sure.
That's amazing, that input, and having more of your character, because she's such she gives it so much heart too. Stephan, do you want to add to what Jasmine just said about crafting the characters?
Yeah, I think the the process was ongoing up until the last shot of the movie. We were always adjusting and tweaking and moving things around depending on how we all felt it was sitting with us in that moment in time. But I'm so grateful for that, sort of that initial conversation that we had with Steve and with Antoine, because we were just able to tap into a whole nother pocket in a necessary pocket in terms of the dynamic of myself in this piece, and as well as our son, who was played brilliantly by a young actor, Danny, I think his name is, Jasmine.
Mm-hmm.
Danny.
Sat down with Antoine. He told me that it was going to be like an infant child, and I said that was the one thing I was like, man, I don't know. I just feel like this kid could be like a whole nother, the stakes are so much higher when you're looking at a kid who can talk back to you and who can understand what's going on, and when you have to protect them and shield them from that. And so, after that conversation, our kid grew 5 years, and it was a 5-year-old kid, instead of this infant, which, all those little conversations, they really help add to the overall value of the finished product. So I was just grateful for the work environment, the fact that Steve made it, Antoine made it safe, to go back and forth with notes. Laurence, being one of the more senior people on set, just made everyone feel comfortable. And I think it's just a testament to all the people involved in this.
Yeah. And I loved the dynamic between, you and Jasmine, and then you've got Laurence on the outside. Like, Laurence, talk about how you approached your character, and did you have any input in crafting yours?
Well, the script was really, really strong. And I would say that perhaps the only place where it might have been lacking was really in Jasmine's character. And again, after that first read through, I think you guys were locked in a room for, I don't know, at least 3 hours you guys were in that room talking, as I remember it. It might have been longer. And that first read through and what came out of it as a result of Stephan and Jasmine and Cephas and Antoine being in a room together with the writer really, really solidified, strengthened her character, but also strengthened the story. As for my character, Poinsy, he was pretty strongly written to begin with. And the biggest challenge was that the things that happened between Poinsy and RAYSHAWN that are on the phone, we weren't really talking to each other at those times. We had to use another actor to stand in for each other. And there was a young actor who's in the show. He plays one of the cops. His name is Tangcay. And he was the guy that would read RAYSHAWN's part for me. Who read for you, Stephan?
I think it was Tangcay. I think the same.
Was it Tangcay? Strong local actor in New Orleans. He was fantastic. So that was one of the challenges. But really, everything for me was pretty much on the page in terms of who this man was, what his history was, what the conflict was in terms of, communicating with this young man and being the go-between between he and the police.
Yeah.
Pretty much on the page for me.
What's your process in getting ready for a character? I mean, like you said, this one was on the page, but when you're doing something like stage or even, any other project, do you create a backstory? Take us into the craft.
It varies from job to job. It's really from character to character. I don't have a set sort of technique that I use. I'm somebody who was a child actor, not unlike the young boy that's in our show, Danny. So, starting from there, it's all just make-believe, really. In its most simplistic form, it's really just make-believe. But for specific things, if you have to actually do something physically that you don't know how to do, obviously you need to be trained in that and get prepared and all that stuff. If there's stuff to read, you can read stuff. But this, for me, this is not a story that's foreign to me. This is not a story that's foreign to anybody that lives in the United States. I've told many versions of it. The social media component, as Jasmine has said, is the thing that made it really timely and current and different and unique. And really powerful also, because social media, not only is it a part of our lives, but it's become a very powerful thing, social media. It's a powerful phenomenon. The way it affects our lives and the way in which we use it, it's pretty powerful. So, this was a labor of love. It was something that was, I think, very necessary to do, and I just feel fortunate to have been a part of it.
Yeah. Stephan, do you want to talk about filming that scene, you know, the cell phone scene where, you know, social media is being used, like what that, like preparing for that and filming that? Because it is so powerful and it's such a memorable thing that you take away. I mean, that, and then, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's intense. I mean, it's intense, especially when you know what you're doing in the spirit of. You know, I say this all the time. I mean, these characters are obviously fictitious characters, but they're representative of real people. And so when you realize that, you know, some of these pleas that RAYSHAWN, you know, is making, we're seeing those pleas happen today. You know, pleading to just have more eyes on the situation, to get other people involved. You know, often African Americans are trapped in a situation where social media is all they have at a point in time, because when it's my word against yours, what do I really have? And so you see how social media becomes this necessary tool, this tool that RAYSHAWN uses almost in desperation. And so it makes those moments, you know, even more eerie, knowing that, you know, that's a real life thing. You know, when people are shouting out, "I can't breathe," and calling out for help and things of that nature. It just makes the social media dynamic all the more real.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about it earlier on, but like the structure of shooting like the 10-minute episodes and the short form, I thought it was so great, because when I watched it, I binged my way through it. I just wanted more with the endings, like the cliffhangers. What was it like shooting it? How did Anton shoot the episodes?
It was.
Well, actually,
Oh, go ahead.
it was Cephas who was our director, and it was written in the 10-minute, 8-minute cliffhanger format. We actually shot it like you'd shoot a normal feature film.
Jasmine, do you want to?
I was just saying that's why we keep saying film a lot, because it really did feel like a film. Just as Laurence said, the only thing that was different was the dialogue and, you know, how they had to try to like sum up, you know, every episode of like, you know, 10 minutes or so or whatever. But it really did. It just felt like a film.
Cephas needs to release the director's cut one day. It was just like, here's the whole.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the editing room, you know, how they edited the whole thing, that was really, you know, the difference, I feel.
Yeah. So you both worked with Laurence. What was that like working with Mr. Fishburne? What did you learn from him?
So Laurence, I don't know if you know this, but I first met Laurence when he came to see us in Hamilton.
Uh-huh.
And I first met him backstage.
Okay.
After he saw the show. And I'll never forget this. He hugged the whole cast like we were his kids. And he literally said, I'll never forget it. He was like, "I'm so proud of you." And it just like stuck in my brain for a long time. So to have this moment full circle for me, and to be able to have a space to feel comfortable and to like share creative flow and, you know, just to dive in emotionally with him is just like, it's pretty incredible. You know, it's like the full circle story, you know? So I don't know, it's a dream, and it's an honor, you know, to share that space and to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody that, you know, you look up to and you've learned from.
What about you, Stephan?
I mean, it was rough because he was always asking me for advice and stuff, and you know,
What advice did you give him?
Young man, you're gifted. I need to know some of these things.
I say, was awesome. It was awesome, and that right there is sort of Laurence. It's just, I mean, he's fun. Consummate pro. To me, it was just kind of like, man, like, this is a guy I've been watching pretty much my whole life, and now I get to stare him in the face and share this scene with him. And he not only is he a gifted actor, he's a gracious actor. I remember him being very giving to me as an actor, and that's, as an artist, that's all you can hope for from your scene partner, is that they're giving you, what they're gonna do when the camera flips the other side. And he was always there for all of us. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I would do it again 10 more times, 100 more times.
Laurence, what advice did you get from Stephan then?
Well, like I always say to people, when they ask me if I give advice to other people, I always say that advice that I gave was for that person. So the advice I got from Stephan James, that was just for me. I can't share that with everyone. I gotta hang on to that.
We tried. Okay, let's just go way back, okay? What is the earliest memory of any of you seeing a show or a movie where, Laurence, you said you started young, but where you were like, that's what I want to do. I want to be on stage, or I want to be in a movie. Like, was there a movie, a TV show, or a stage show that was like, that's what I want to do?
God, I'm sure there was a moment like that, but I never vocalized it. I'm sure it was going on in my head a lot, but I never was able to verbalize it. And then by the time I got to 10 years old, I was actually doing it. So I'm not sure what that moment was, though.
My father's an actor, so I grew up in theater, especially a theater company called Labyrinth Theater Company. And I was kind of like that kid doing my math homework in the lighting booth, watching like Philip Seymour Hoffman direct, a Stephen Adly Girgis play, Jesus Hopped the A Train, which my dad played Lucius, and, I probably was way too young to watch that. But immediately I understood characters and how they worked, and I was so inspired by it, but I didn't know that I really wanted to do this until high school. And I was in opera workshop. I wanted to be a coloratura soprano, and I wanted to do opera for a while, and I played Edith in Pirates of Penzance. And that was when it was like singing and acting kind of came together, and I was a senior, and then I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. I actually do want to do this. I don't want to be a vet. I want to do this.
Love it. Stephan?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there was, like once, I don't know if there was like a specific aha moment, but, I grew up in a sort of a poverty-stricken community, and I was raised by a single mother who raised me and my two brothers. So she raised 3 boys by herself, and, she would always do whatever she could as a mother, to make sure that we had food in our stomachs, to make sure that we had a roof over our heads, and to make sure that we were safe. And one of the ways that she tried to keep us safe was to keep us in the house. And as much as I detested some of those moments as a kid, watching my friends play basketball, outside and stuff like that, my mom would always try to keep this close eye on us. And so we spent a lot of time in the house, and she would make us read books, and she would make us watch films. And so I was inundated with films as a child, now that I remember it, because my mom just felt it was a better use of our time. Hundreds of thousands of movies, and if there was one that really sticks out that I was just like, whoa, this is cool, it's probably Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. And I think that was Quentin's first film, but it just brought me, again, probably too young to be watching that.
Always, right?
Always the case, right?
It just brought me to another planet. And so, you know, that inspired a whole nother wave of me digging into actors, digging into Denzel and P.S. Hoffman and directors, Steve McQueen and P.T. Anderson and all these people who, you know, now are the reason that I'm sitting on this Zoom.
Okay, last question, because we have to wrap up sadly, but how are you staying creative during this time when we're, you know, in a pandemic, in lockdown?
Oh, wow.
As artists.
Yeah, I'm catching up on my sleep, as I was saying earlier. I'm catching up on a lot of reading.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And cooking my ass off.
Laurence, where are you quarantining again? We're all coming over for dinner.
Los Angeles.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got these scooters that go 20 miles per hour. And I've just been scooting all the way around Brooklyn and, you know, trying to stay by the water. I live close to a park, so, you know, try to be smart and safe and, you know, kind of whiz somewhere on there. And I've been writing a lot of music lately, which is awesome, and a lot of TV and cooking as well.
Yeah.
For me, I've definitely tapped into a new skill set, which I was explaining earlier, which is making cherry chip cupcakes. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but that shit is good. It's good. Jazz, you send me your address, I'll send you some cupcakes.
Please, we need to try these.
We'll make it happen.
Totally. I just shipped new cookies to New York, so it's like, hey, running into FedEx, so get these there. So we can do that. But congratulations again on the show. It is so important that, you know, it's so powerful, and the performances are incredible. Congratulations on the Emmy nominations. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, we want to thank you for joining us and sharing your experience, your process, and craft with your fellow performing artists. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.